Hey there, Wellness Centers, it's Kyle. Welcome to my kitchen. This week starts the Healthy Habit Challenge, Fats for Good, where we're challenging you to get good healthy fats into your meals or into your snacks. Today, I'm going to provide you with a recipe or a follow-along to fish tacos. And my healthy fats are going to be tilapia for the fish, avocados in the guacamole, and we're going to add in some other stuff, some Pico de Gallo, and a cilantro lime crema. Let's get this started. Let's start by making the guacamole. I have 2 avocados, a half of an onion, lime, garlic, cilantro, and salt and pepper to make this recipe. I'm sure a lot of you guys have made guacamole before, so let me take this moment to talk about why avocados are a great, good source of fat. Avocados are a heart-healthy, nutrient-dense superfood with substantial amounts of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients with relatively few calories. Avocados are also the only fruit to contain monounsaturated fats, which is good fats. Avocados are also naturally sodium, sugar, and cholesterol free. Avocados also act as a nutrient booster by helping the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients like vitamins A, D, K, and E. So, avocados, great way to add in some good fats into your diets, and in this case, for fish tacos, guacamole. For those who have never made guacamole before, let me run you through how I'm making this recipe. So, starting with the avocados, I'm cutting them in half, carefully using my knife to remove the pit, and then scraping out the green portion of the avocado away from the skin and putting it in my mixing bowl. Then I'll move over to my white onion. Now for me, I'm not a big white onion fan, so even though I have an entire half of a white onion, I'm not going to use all of it. So I'm going to slice it horizontally and then right down the middle, so that way when I actually slice it vertically, the other direction, I can get good fine pieces, a fine kind of chop, if you will, of the onion. So like I said, I'm not going to use all the white onion here, just enough, just for my own taste. If you like onion, by all means, cut up the entire half. From here, adding in garlic. Now this is just jarred minced garlic. You can use whole garlic if you want and chop that up on your own. This is just more convenient for me. So put in about, I love garlic. So a tablespoon, maybe 2. And then adding in some salt and pepper just to taste for now. Then cutting my lime in half, squeezing the lime juice in, and trying to get as much of it in there as I can. Now for the final ingredient, cilantro. So I've chopped off, maybe a half a cup or so, and then running my knife through it, finely chopping that up. Really not trying to break it down too much, because I still want the good flavor and the aroma that cilantro brings out in this guacamole. So finally chopping that up, and then tossing that into my mixing bowl, and giving everything a good mix and mash with my fork. So after your guacamole is mashed and mixed to the consistency that you're looking for, you might want to give it a taste and see if you need to add in more garlic or more lime juice or even more salt and pepper. I did that a little bit, knowing that I didn't put enough in my first time, but the one thing that I've really learned with making guac or even making Pico de Gallo is allowing everything to sit and kind of marry together. We'll set that aside and move on to the Pico de Gallo. For the Pico de Gallo, I'm starting with Roma tomatoes. One thing that I learned from a trip to Cozumel and some other research on how to make Pico de Gallo or salsa fresca is taking out the core of the tomato that you're using. By doing this, you eliminate a lot of the excess juices that tomatoes can have, and you're left with an end product, the end Pico de Gallo, being more about the vegetable components or the fruit components versus it being kind of a soupy mess. If you like your salsa or your Pico de Gallo as a kind of watery or juicy or soupy mess, as I just said, feel free to leave the seeds and the rest of the tomato in. For me, this is what I like, and it gives me the consistency that I'm looking for. So now I'll just thinly slice and chop into a kind of a small dice of these Roma tomatoes and put them in a different mixing bowl. Now moving on to the onion. As you can see, I'm using that onion that is left over from the guacamole. Again, I'm not much of a onion fan, but I'm gonna use up as much of this as I can into this Pico de Gallo. So cutting it all the way up until kind of the root of the onion, and then turning it over and trying to cut as much off of it as I can, finely chopping it as well, and then tossing it into the mixture of the Pico de Gallo. Now, to give this Pico de Gallo a little bit of a kick or a spice or some heat, I have just one jalapeno here. You could do more if you'd like. I've done 2 to 3 in the past if I'm looking for more of a hotter Pico de Gallo, but for this recipe, for the fish tacos, I just wanted 1. So again, keeping that same cutting with all of my vegetables here, trying to keep them the same size, the same consistency, so that way I can use this Pico de Gallo to top my fish tacos here. So I'll give that a little mix here just to incorporate things before adding in my garlic. And again, I love garlic, so I probably put in about 2 tablespoons here. And then moving on to the cilantro. And again, cutting about a cup or so of the cilantro, finely chopping that up, trying to get that into smaller pieces, stem and all. You'll probably notice from the video that I didn't pick off each individual leaf. Cilantro is good just in its full form. Adding in some salt and pepper to taste, and then the final ingredient here with the Pico de Gallo is that other half of that lime. So squeezing that in, getting as much of the juices into that Pico de Gallo as I can, and then mixing it all together. Now, same thing as the guacamole, I've learned to not taste this right away after I've mixed it together and incorporated all the ingredients. It's best to let it sit for a little bit, let the juices, let the salt kind of activate or marry together, creating that flavor, and then later on, making adjustments, adding more salt and pepper or adding more lime juice for that matter. To keep this fish taco recipe super simple, I've decided to use frozen tortilla crusted tilapia from Costco. Makes it super simple. I could very well buy fresh tilapia and crust them and add spices and stuff, but with the other ingredients, the pico, the crema, the guacamole, this is a great easy way to get the protein in for this meal. So let me take this moment to talk about tilapia and how that is a good source of fat. Tilapia is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which have been directly linked to lowering cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels in the cardiovascular system. Omega-3s neutralize the impact of omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-6s, you can typically find those in like your fried foods. So omega-3s, again, help neutralize the impact of omega-6s. Omega-3s also help prevent atherosclerosis, heart attacks, and strokes. There are other great forms of fish that have good omega-3s in it. But for this recipe, we're sticking with tilapia. The last thing that we need to make here is the cilantro lime crema. I have a healthier version here by using Greek yogurt as the base instead of the typical Mexican crema, which is kind of like a creme fraiche or a sour cream. So the Greek yogurt that I'm using is just the Chobani brand, and it's a plain Greek yogurt with whole milk. So hopefully that whole milk will create a little more creamier texture for the crema. So I'm adding it into my little mixing bowl. It's probably about a half a cup or so. And then adding in the final ingredients, which isn't very much. For this recipe, it is simply Greek yogurt, cilantro, lime juice, salt, pepper, a little bit of paprika, and a little bit of water if you need to. So finely chopping the cilantro here, same consistency as I've done before, kind of that small chop, adding that cilantro into the Greek yogurt. And I chopped off probably about, another third of a cup to half of a cup. So taking a lime, cutting it in half, and little by little adding in some lime juice and tasting as I go. In total, I probably squeezed in a full half of a lime, so maybe 3 tablespoons or so of lime juice, and then adding in salt and pepper with kind of each mix and each add of the lime juice. Again, looking for the right consistency. I was looking for the right flavor with this crema. I was getting the sense that it just needed something else. And I didn't want to really take away from the cilantro and lime taste that I was going for, but it needed just a little bit of something else. So I decided to add in a little bit of smoked paprika, which ended up being about a half of a teaspoon. Not very much, just to give it a little something extra. So once I got the taste of the crema where I wanted it to be, this is where I did start adding a little bit of water, little by little, to get the consistency that I was looking for. I didn't want it super thick, super dense. I wanted it to be more where it kind of streamed or flowed off my spoon like a sauce. So in total, I probably put in about a tablespoon or so of water. This consistency is up to you. You can keep it as thick as you want to, or you can add more water in and get it, more of that liquidy consistence. So now I felt I was at a good point after making all of the ingredients to go back to my guacamole and my Pico de Gallo and give each of those a taste and decide if it needed more salt or if it needed more lime juice or whatever I needed to add to it to get the taste that I wanted to. When I tried the guacamole, it tasted great. Right spot on what I was looking for, how I like my guacamole tasting. The Pico de Gallo, as you can see, needed to add a little bit more salt. That time frame to just let those things sit for a little bit, gather the flavors all together, was perfect. So highly suggest when you're making guacamole, when you're making Pico de Gallo, let it sit for a little bit and then taste it and then add in what you think it may need. just to give my fish tacos a little bit more color, I decided to chop up some red cabbage. As you can see, same kind of fine chop that I've done with all the other vegetables, just keeping that size, the vegetable size, the consistency the same. So just a fine chop of that red cabbage, and that'll go sprinkled on top when we start plating and building our fish tacos. In a dry skillet, I'll heat my tortillas. I'll heat them on both sides until they show like a little bit of browning spots, not to burnt, but just so they're a little bit crispy, and then adding in some chopped fish that was cooked to the box specifications, and then adding some Pico de Gallo, a couple dollops of guacamole, pouring some of the cilantro lime crema over top, and then a little sprinkle of the red cabbage just to finish it off completely before enjoying. For the tortillas, feel free to use yellow or white corn tortillas. You can also use flour tortillas if you'd like. I prefer, for fish tacos, the corn tortillas, whereas my fiance likes the flour tortillas the best. So I hope you found this recipe enjoyable, and go out there and add in some good fats like avocados or even tilapia into your meals or into your snacks, and challenge yourself during this Fats for Good Healthy Habit Challenge.